Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is my second Gods Unchained video. If you have not yet watched the first one, then you should. No, just kidding. Anyways, for this video, I will be sharing with you 6 games from my weekend rank where I experimented with an Aggro Light Deck. The deck that I used will be shown in your screen. Before we start the games, here are some disclaimers that you should consider. First, I am relatively unfamiliar with this deck. I built this deck just days before weekend rank and had a few practice games with random players of random ranks. This is also my first time using a light deck for the weekend rank. Just for a quick tip, you can use the code PRACTICE in the direct challenge game mode to play games with random people who use the same code without risking your rank. It's great for testing new decks. Next, my gameplay does not equate to the deck's full potential. I am used to play control and mid-range decks. Aggro deck is not my forte. A player who has been using aggro decks for a longer period of time has probably better gameplay and optimal strategies. Next, I am not a pro player nor a full-time gamer. Those people are master of their craft and I am not. I do not have experience playing other TCGs prior to Gods Unchained, and all my insights, strategies, and techniques were all developed through playing the game and watching other people play the game. It should not by any means be taken as optimal gameplay. And finally, my deck does not have any of the new core cards from the recent core set refresh. With all those laid out, let the games begin. For the first game, I am up against a magic deck. The moment I saw that my opponent's god power is clear mind, I already knew that I will be against some type of combo magic. In this game, my opponent used the new combo with the new magic core cards, the Dralamar combo. It is a combo where if conditions are met, it is a slow and painful death for you. As of editing this video, I don't think there's yet an existing direct counter for this combo. But for this game, I just wish that my opponent could not complete their combo on time. Unfortunately for me, in this turn, my opponent drew the Lost in the Depths card and I am now racing with time. At this point, when my opponent played Dralamar, I already knew that this game was done for. All my opponent needs to do was to spam magic inks. The ether bugs will slowly but surely wipe my board and will eventually reduce my health to zero. All I can do was to concede. For our next game, we are fortunate enough to face another combo magic deck. Do you have any guess on which combo deck this is? Correct. We are up against the Infinite Portal Wrangler combo. Similar with our first game, we pray that they can complete their combo before we can do lethal. Did you see that? What's that? It's the loss in the depths. Now we are racing against time and hope that we can do enough to defeat this combo. At this point, my only strategy was to do as much face damage as I can. When I saw the two warp engineers on the board, I already knew that their combo is almost complete. Probably just waiting for a specific card to appear. And here they are, the Infinite Portal Wrangler combo is finally here. Do you think we can win? Yes, and we won that game. Thanks to CERN. CERN actually just saved our asses. The order that CERN inflicted to the buff Portal Wrangler with Frontline not only stalled 5 damage but also enabled us to hit face. I actually faced this deck again later during my weekend rank run, but they were not able to complete their combo on that match. For our third game, we are up against my personal favorite deck, the Zombie Death deck. In my past weekend rank with my own Zombie Death deck, I find light decks as real hindrance as they have really high health and extremely hard to deal with. As a main Zombie Death deck user, it is my advantage that I know most of the deck's combo and I know how to deal with them. Let's see if I can defeat this deck. Actually, my initial thought was my opponent was a sacrifice death deck, maybe a zoo death or a mid-range death deck, as they have blood ritual as god power and their first creature was a wild hog. The cursed obelisk actually gave it away. If I knew earlier though, I would have prevented my opponent to do frenzy by placing the Olympian guard on the board first.
The victories I forge will be the salvation of Stygia.
If you are playing against death decks, make sure to remove the undead roach on the board on your turn or else it will just come back again and again. Oh god, these zombies are really hard to deal with. They are so annoying. And probably that's why I love using them. Unfortunately for me though, I don't have any mass removal cards on my deck and I don't really know if Light has any mass removal card.
Hmm.
In this turn, my opponent was able to draw the Necroceptor, completing their combo. Without any relic removal on my deck and no mass removal, I'm really having a hard time dealing with this deck.
If you want to see the void, all you have to do is close your eyes. Now hold still. You ever just feel like, slapping yourself around with a severed...
After a few rounds, I was able to build my own creatures on the board with relatively high health. So it's a little harder for my opponent to deal with my creatures. The reason why I was targeting my opponent's creatures instead of doing face is because they might have a corpse explosion on their hand. After rewatching this game, maybe I should have done face. In this turn, I was able to get the Nightleaf Trapper from the Sanctum. However, I don't have enough mana to place it on the board. At first, I thought this Miasmic Forge was a little counterproductive for zombie because it At first, I thought this Miasmic Forge was just a little counterproductive for zombie death decks because it consumes space that a zombie can occupy. Little did I know that my opponent has a plan with the Miasmic Forge that I will later regret. I was so focused on removing the zombies on the board that maybe hitting face could have been more advantageous for me.
That's enough for now. Fear me. My turn.
Your screams will echo in the void. this tunnel.
When the Guild Enforcer was played on the board, I fully realized that this was really a bad game for me. The series of consecutively wrong decisions has brought me to this point. I definitely need more practice using this deck.
Time to act.
Hmm.
This game was really long and unfortunate. For the fourth game, I am up against another Aggro Light Deck. I lost this game, but I wanted to show you this as my opponent has the new Light Core cards which are extremely powerful when played properly.
Best of luck. You're gonna need some sunscreen.
My opponent played the Vexing Vicar where I need to hit it twice in order to eliminate it from the board. I do not have any Blitz creature in my deck, nor a creature or relic with Twin Strike. I can't even transform it because it has Ward. It really has stalled my early game.
Honor guides me. That's enough for now. Time to act.
My opponent played really well as I cannot put any creatures on the board without them removing it. In the next few turns, you can just watch me get slapped by my opponent until I lost all hope in life.
That's enough for now. My turn. shall be swift. My turn.
After this depressing game, I actually ranked down to a serial diamond, so I went ahead and modified my deck for a bit. I changed my 2 devoted follower for 2 Vanguard Axwoman. This small change actually improved my gameplay and was able to win a few games after this. My 5th game was against a control nature deck. The key strategy for this deck was to actually go wide as much as we can and use mass buffing cards to make our creatures tanky and more powerful. Most of the cards in our deck are actually buffer cards, and most of the cards in our deck are actually buffing cards. Aside from our early drops, we are reliant with our god power to supply us with Acolyte to fill the board before using the buffer cards. Additionally, our creatures mostly have strength lower or equal to 2. This is actually in preparation for the legendary card Asterius. Asterius will give +2/+2 to any creatures in your board if they have 2 or less strength.
Honor guides me.
In this game, Cadmus is actually our MVP. In the next few turns, we will try to buff Cadmus as much as we can in order to stall our opponent from dealing face damage. Just to note, I am only able to do this comfortably against my opponent because they are using nature. I know nature does not have any destroying cards, and their lightning strike card can now only deal 6 damage. We will be in a different situation when faced against death or deception decks.
Honor guides me.
Speaking of the lightning strike, since Cadmus has only 2 strength and our enraged ally has 4, the lightning strike targeted the enraged ally instead. Maybe we got lucky there, huh?
I will not back down.
My turn.
We actually won this game by controlling the board, which is not really typical for aggro decks. Maybe this deck is not really aggro. What do you think? For our last game, we are up against an aggro war deck. I think this is Viking aggro war, where most of my opponent's creature belongs to the tribe Viking.
With justice as my shield, I cannot lose. Once more unto the breach. Honor guides me. Time to act.
In this turn, my opponent was able to remove my creatures on the board and play one themselves. This is our disadvantage as our buffing cards are useless without any creatures on the board. In the next few turns, I will try to snatch away the board control. At this point, I'm not really sure why my opponent chose to attack face using the relic instead of attacking one of my creatures, essentially removing two of them on the board. Based on their next action, I don't think they needed the frenzy either. After that misplay from my opponent, I got the board control back with 3 creatures on the board, ready to be buffed the following turn.
Honor guides me. My turn.
After several turns, we still had strong grip of the board control that eventually led my opponent to concede. For the results, we managed to bag 13 wins in the weekend rank even though we still had lots of room for improvement. As for my observation and experience after this experiment, my analysis of this deck are as follows. First, the pros. As an aggro deck, it has relatively short gameplays which are usually conclusive in less than 7 rounds. I completed the 25 games of my weekend rank in under 3 hours using this deck. When compared to other aggro decks, this deck can survive a lot more early in the game as you have access to a lot of health buffing and healing cards that make your creatures really tanky. As light, which is a very underused god, direct counter strategies against light decks are not yet in everyone's playbook, compared to other decks that are much more common in the meta. You can use this as your advantage. For the cons, once you lose your board control early in the game, it will be extremely difficult to compete with other decks which have endgame cards. It is better to just concede and move on to another game than wasting your time to hold a losing game. Unlike other aggro decks that prioritize damage buffing, the light aggro decks prioritize health. Sometimes you might encounter situations where you lack firepower that can cost you the game. Light decks are also a little costly. Some of the light competitive cards belong to the previous card sets, thus they are not obtainable for free. You might have to trade some cards in order to purchase these competitive cards if you are free to play. As for the conclusion, let's answer some quick questions about this deck. First, can this deck conquer Mythic rank? Yes, but still needs adequate practice and modifications based on your own playstyle for optimal results. Can this deck be a top tier deck? Probably not, as this deck in my opinion is a one trick pony. Or maybe I still don't know how to play this deck optimally. We'll see. Will I still use this deck in the future? Yes, but I might change things a little bit, switch a few cards or watch other light users to learn how to optimize this deck. As for my suggestions for improving this deck, number 1 is inclusion of relic removal cards such as Iron Tooth Goblin or Bronze Servant. Preferably Iron Tooth Goblin as it is 2 mana 2/2 card that can be buffed with Asterius. Second is inclusion of cards that can stall your opponent early game like Pyramid Warden or the new core card Vexing Vicar. Next is experimenting with the new core cards that are introduced with the core set refresh. A lot of light cards seems to have great potential but are not yet fully utilized. Lastly, practice, practice, and practice. Did I say practice? Practice. And that's it for this video. If you reach up to this point, I want to thank you all. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you have any comments, questions, suggestions, and feedback, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. See you next time. Bye.